The FBI has investigated what could become the world's largest ransomware attack. The Russia-linked cyber gang known as REvil launched an attack on Friday. This is the same group behind the cyber breach of one of the world's largest meat processors. This time, the target was an company that provides remote services to hundreds of businesses, including financial service firms and grocery chains. On Sunday, the group demanded a $70 million ransom. CBS News investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge has more.
Hackers hit IT software company Kaseya Friday. They infected some of its customers that rely on the network management system, including Swedish grocery chain Co-op, which closed most of its 800 stores for a second day Sunday because their cash register software shut down.
Lots of criminal organizations are finding out that they can get paid millions of dollars to disrupt our economy. If you compromise Kaseya, you can then take over the Kaseya infrastructure to help broadcast ransomware to all of those unwitting victims.
After recent ransomware breaches at Colonial Pipeline and JBS, a major meat processor, Homeland Security warned in this recent intelligence report obtained by CBS News that ransomware attacks are likely to increase in the near and long term.
These are largely Russian-affiliated entities. These organizations are able to operate with relative impunity because there's not really any enforcement from the Russian state.
In Michigan Saturday, President Biden said intelligence officials are investigating.
I directed the intelligence community to give me a deep dive on what's happened.
Last month, he warned the Russian president to rein in cyber criminals or face a strong U.S. response.
And if it is either with the knowledge of and or a consequence of Russia, then I told Putin we will respond.
In a statement, Kaseya said customer teams continue to work around the clock to resolve the issue and restore our customers to service.
And Catherine Herridge joins me now for more on the intelligence community's response. And we're also joined by CBSN technology reporter Dan Patterson. Thank you both for being here. Catherine, I want to start with you because this hack happened over a holiday weekend. What is the significance of that? Do you know?
Well, Caitlin, my contacts report that it is not a coincidence. If you just go back a few weeks to the JBS hack, that major meat processor, that was over the Memorial Day weekend. And the reason the timing matters is my contacts say that it allows these cyber gangs to burrow into the networks. It makes them harder to extricate and also allows them to infect more users and maximize the money in the ransom. So the timing is by design. And in this case, in the United States, we probably won't have a good handle on how many U.S. businesses and U.S. consumers are affected until we get into the business week and that first full day of business back from the holiday on Tuesday.
And you mentioned the intelligence assessment, a warning of more ransomware attacks. What else was in that report?
Well, Caitlin, they have something in the intelligence and law enforcement world called second and third order consequences. And in this particular case, what the Homeland Security intelligence report said is that one of those consequences is that when you have large systems that are shut down to prevent the spread of ransomware, that can have a physical impact on the operations. They said it was a degradation of those physical operations. So you're talking about a twofold attack. One is in this cyber world to encrypt their data, and the second is the fallout of shutting down systems like a pipeline to prevent the spread of the ransomware.
And Dan, the group behind this attack is demanding $70 million to unlock the infected systems. What are the odds of that ransom actually being paid?
So I've been speaking with cyber experts for the last few days who kind of have an understanding of how these criminal operations function. And although it might seem counterintuitive, think of these kind of as startup companies. And many cyber experts are saying that this $70 million universal decryptor offer is kind of a panic button, an oh crap button. This group's, again, using kind of the a startup metaphor, this group was way more successful than they anticipated, at least according to a message they posted on their dark web blog. And they had, just like a startup, problems scaling to meet demand. So they offered this potential very expensive but very useful decryptor key. But again, in the cyber world, especially cyber criminal world, nothing is really as it seems. So I would take a lot of these offers with a grain of salt, but it's an interesting posture.
And is there a way for these companies to unlock their systems without paying the ransom?
Sometimes. I mean, there are third-party companies that will negotiate with these ransomware gangs. There are offers for decryptor software. Sometimes these gangs use kind of crappy encryption that can be hammered and decrypted easily. But the more sophisticated the operator, the more sophisticated code, and generally you have to do some sort of interoperation to get your data back.
And Catherine, this cyber attack hit companies around the world. How are law enforcement agencies here in the U.S. and in other countries responding?
Well, they're trying to work in coordination to identify this sort of nexus or intersection between the ransomware criminal gang and the target. As Dan will tell you, what often happens is that these groups use servers in other countries to mask their fingerprints. So it can be very difficult to find that ultimate attribution as to where the attack originated. And all of that matters because the U.S. intelligence community is reviewing this case. And if they can find that sort of smoking gun piece of evidence that links it, to Russia and any kind of support from the Russian government, President Biden has vowed to respond in kind in the future.
And Dan, it seems like these attacks are becoming larger in scope, with the people behind them demanding higher and higher ransoms. Is this really just about money, or are there any other motivations here? And what can companies do to better protect themselves against these kinds of attacks?
Well, Caitlin, as Catherine indicated, there are a lot of different motivations and a lot of different places of origination for these criminal operators. But if you, again, think of them as kind of like startup companies that have some sort of structure to them, and at least superficially think of them as financially motivated criminals, there are three primary reasons that we're seeing this explosion in ransomware right now. And that is, one, there's just a large market of vulnerable targets. These are companies or governments with just old software that's easily hacked. Two, we see this really potent weapon, ransomware, that's easy to deploy. And three, we see cryptocurrency. It's not a motivator, but that's kind of the mechanism. It makes it real easy to get paid. You don't have to think of schemes in order to get your actual cash out. So, yeah, to answer your second question, Caitlin, there are things companies can do, but the number one thing you should do is kind of harden your defenses. Use good cyber hygiene, and the criminals will move on to the next victim.
And Catherine, you mentioned these potential links to Russia and, of course, Biden's meeting with Vladimir Putin last month. What more do we know about the potential links to the Russian government? Is this a case of them not being able to rein these groups in, or really not wanting to? Do you know?
Well, I was just listening to Dan. I went back to this Homeland Security Intelligence report because something about it kind of got my attention again. And they talk about the explosion of these cases in part because these groups have developed good business models. That's how they describe it. They have a better model for success, financial gain, and then also maintaining anonymity. So I agree with Dan. The big motivator here is money, but that's not to say that these criminals for hire are not willing to freelance on behalf of intelligence services like the Russians. And that is where the relationship exists. It is not a situation where Vladimir Putin's government is funding them, but he is giving them safe harbor to operate from Russian territory or neighboring countries like Bulgaria and Romania. So that is where the connection is.
Wow, and just really fascinating that this is all by design to happen on a holiday weekend, so something to keep an eye on going forward. Catherine Herridge and Dan Patterson, thank you so much. Wish we had more time to discuss this, but really appreciate you breaking this down for us. Thank you.